Pre-onk, a Godzilla movie marathon where we're stomping through Godzilla's filmography. I'm Derek, and I've seen all the Godzilla movies.
And I'm Doug, and now I've seen 13 Godzilla movies.
And we're talking about the 8th ever film in the Godzilla movie franchise, and the first major changing of the guard in Ebirah, Horror of the Deep. Also known as Gojira, Ebirah, Mothra, Nankai no Daiketo, which translates to Godzilla, Ebirah, Mothra, Big Duel in the South Seas, and known in the U.S. as Godzilla versus the Sea Monster.
Big Duel in the South Seas fucking rules.
Pretty great. Pretty great, actually. This movie was released in Japan on December 17th, 1966. It was directed by Jun Fukuda, with the director of special effects Sadamasa Arikawa under the supervision of Eiji Tsuburaya, written by Shinichi Sekizawa, produced by Tomoyuki Tanaka, with a score by Masaru Sato. And before we get into it, I'd like to take a quick moment to thank our spectacular patrons, Bo, Carl, Katie, Jason, Zoe, James, Keith, Cody, and Toby.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, Doug.
Hi.
You craving seafood?
That's all I've been able to think about for the past couple weeks.
Craving some shellfish, man. I do love me a lobster tail with some of that like butter sauce. Oh my God, it's so good. I know I normally first ask you off the bat what your overall thoughts are, but I'm going to tell you this was kind of like the first time watching this movie for me, because I've seen it once. I saw this movie once ever, and I never revisited it. I added like an extra syllable there. Revisited it and had like no memory of it, and I don't remember my opinion of it. Like, I feel like my opinion was always like, I watched it and immediately forgot it and then never revisited it at all. And I think maybe I was, tired or not in a good mood or something like that, but it never stuck with me. So I was like, honestly, bizarrely excited to get to this one because I was like giving me a reason to like watch it and make sure that I pay attention and actually figure out what I think of it. Because if you asked me what I thought about this movie ahead of time, I would have been like, I truly could not tell you. So this is going to be, this was a great experience for me. And honestly, I actually really enjoyed it watching it this time. I think this movie is kind of a blast, actually, in really specific, unique ways. How do you feel about it, Doug?
I agree. I think this one is very fun. I'm not surprised necessarily that you could watch this one time, especially if you're like in the middle of a big, long sort of marathon and not have it be one that sticks with you immediately. But it's really fun. I like it. It has a very, very specific vibe. And I could tell pretty quickly that something was different about it. So additionally, it is significant,
Yeah, I think if you truly are watching these consecutively, which we have not been doing for this podcast, but if you're marathoning it, like you were saying, consecutively, it is weird to go from like Ghidorah to Astro Monster to this. And I do think that if you're watching it in that way, I could sort of see how this movie ends up getting a little bit lost, because I think it does in a lot of ways, I think, feel like a downgrade or step back in those respects if you're watching the sort of escalation to like space opera science fiction stuff. And then this is absolutely not that at all, really. I think I can sort of see how it's just sort of like it ends up feeling forgettable. But if you are meeting it where it's at for what it's doing, I think it's doing, there's actually like a wild amount of stuff happening in this movie, like in terms of characters and plot stuff. Like there's a lot going on in it, but it feels very unique too at the same time.
But reminding us of Astro Monster and Ghidorah and all that sort of stuff, like this movie, despite how much is going on, is like extremely contained compared to some of those. It all is in one location, basically, for the most part. And it's way more grounded and realistic as far as like a kaiju movie can go.
Yeah, well, a lot of that is because of budget, but I think that I
think
that
can easily kill something really fast, and I don't think it kills this.
I think this movie utilizes its budget really, really well. For the most part. So, I mean, I think that this movie also has one of the more interesting backstories. I think just because of how many new people are suddenly working on it. So I think it's going to be the bulk of like the production stuff that we're talking about. Honestly, is all the new people that are now here. But I think that one the world context happening is that like by the 1960s, I think like what they were referring to and what has been referred to as the golden age of Japanese filmmaking was kind of coming to an end. You know, those types of things kind of ebb and flow, right? That happens with Hollywood too. And there's like a wave where like movies were doing amazingly and Japanese production companies were doing amazingly. End of 1960s, television's exploding. You know, we've talked about this before. Toho has been dealing with that in these Godzilla movies for a while now. And I think that Japan was a little bit behind America in television exploding in pop culture. So that's why like the 60s are really when it hits Japan in a big way. But like you have stuff like Ultraman that's captivating children. So it's not like you're even bringing kids to the theater to see monster movies, you know, at this point, because they've got it on TV. So fewer and fewer people are going to the movie theater. It's the same thing we talk about today in some regards with happening with movie theaters getting, you know, less and less audiences now for various reasons, right? So time is a big flat circle, right? But because of that, I think that it results in a number of things that impact this movie that we're going to talk about throughout this. Pretty much the whole reason there's a shakeup at all. But I think, you know, smaller budgets are a big thing that Toho starts looking at for these. And also I think because these aren't the big cash cows that they used to be, monster movies, I should say, aren't the big cash cows they used to be, they also kind of just start getting treated like B pictures, you know? Like America's was already kind of doing that, and Japan ends up kind of like settling into that too, where it's like, you know, we're gonna tack this on as a double feature, and this is we're not expecting Godzilla to be the big draw. The other movie that it's stuck with will probably be more of the draw than Godzilla, and Godzilla is just sort of the extra thing to hopefully, you know, get more people in, right?
Yeah.
Also, I think that influences Toho being like, we need to have a big heavy hitter. Last time we had, you know, one of our biggest successes ever was King Kong versus Godzilla. So we need to actually get King Kong back on the silver screen. And oddly enough, that is how we get into this movie, because this was originally a King Kong movie.
This is another almost King Kong movie.
Another almost King Kong movie. Yeah. So
this one?
Oh, you know what? The more you think about it, though, the more it's going to make sense. I think I'm a little unclear on like, I think they had a deal with RKO that was allowing Toho to use King Kong for like 5 years or something. So like by 1967, that was going to expire. So they had to.
Oh, so they were like, we got to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And Rankin, I don't know exactly how all the legal stuff checks out essentially, but Rankin Bass Productions also in America had the rights to American King Kong productions. They were in the midst of producing a show called The King Kong Show, which is a cartoon that was airing at that time, or it was about to air this year. So they were working with Toho, intending to do another US Japanese co-production, which they've done for the past few years, right? And figuring they could do a King Kong movie with Toho that could work as a tie-in for their American cartoon. So originally this movie was entitled Operation Robinson Crusoe, King Kong versus Ebirah. And basically, it's the movie that you see here. Just swap out Godzilla for King Kong. Like, no joke.
Oh, swap out Godzilla for King Kong. Okay, that makes a little bit more sense.
Yes.
I was thinking this was another King Kong and Godzilla movie, and that made less sense to me.
Right. No. Yeah. So everything Godzilla does in this movie would have been a King Kong thing. I'll send you, and Mothra would have still been involved. I just sent you an image for some concept art that they'd come up with. That was like, that's King Kong fighting Ebirah with Mothra, like hanging out in the background. That looks pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was pretty far in. I mean, and if you think about it,
yeah.
Like if you think about Godzilla being in King Kong's place, Godzilla wakes up because of electricity and kind of draws strength from electricity. Electricity was a weird thing that they gave King Kong, power that they gave to King Kong in his movie, because he was originally a Frankenstein. So like the lightning thing going from Frankenstein to King Kong to Godzilla is kind of funny.
Yeah.
the whole bit with Godzilla and like Dio, you know, another beautiful female protagonist, that like they have this weird connection in that bit where he's like about to fall asleep and she's freaking out. Like you could see that playing and making sense with King Kong if he's like fascinated with her, you know?
Sure.
So it makes a lot of sense. They really didn't change the script very much from when they switched it to Godzilla. And the reason that they did really was just Rankin Bass didn't feel like their film really was that close to the cartoon they were making at all. So they were like, we're not really into this. And instead of just scrapping the script completely, Toho was like, we've got this finished script. So why don't we just swap Kong for Godzilla and then make the movie? And they still end up doing another script that becomes King Kong Escapes that Ishirō Honda directs next year. So they still do get to make their King Kong movie the year after this.
That makes sense to me. And
yeah.
The more, knowing where King Kong was supposed to slot in, that does make a lot more sense.
Yeah. Pretty much the only person one of the only people that were like heavily involved in this movie that have been part of Godzilla for a long time was Shinichi Sekizawa, as the writer. He wrote the script. But this is during a point in time where he was like openly feeling like he was being really forced to turn out these scripts for monster movies at a grueling pace. He had yearly Godzilla movies. He was also writing for Ultraman at the same time. And he was actually kind of begging Toho to like hire another writer to help him, but they were looking to cut costs. They were like, no, we're not going to hire anyone officially. You've got to do this, man. And we can talk about it and see. I still think this movie is strongly written, but I do think we're going to see elements from this movie that get repeated because he's like exhausted. Cause
sure.
Even just like a lot of the island stuff, we've sort of seen that before in his other movies,
Yeah.
I think that's kind of a reason why. That's part of it. I think that'll be something I think we can sort of track throughout this era of the Showa era of sort of like, where is it like budget cuts? Where are people just like really, really tired, cause it's a weird point when this Toho kind of ends up sounding a lot more like a modern day media corporation, the way that they treat things,
Sure.
more and more, I think.
Sure. It makes me wonder if, things will start to feel not entirely like, but a little bit like more like episodes of a TV show than separate movies in a series, if he has to sort of recycle parts or rework parts, then, it kind of like when we talked about like the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon, like there were certain things you could kind of expect to see in each episode of that cartoon.
Right.
It sounds like that might be the case. I don't know. I'll find out.
Yeah, for sure. I think that'll be a thing to like sort of keep an eye on, and I'm sure that that's a thing that like, if you want to have any criticisms about this era of Godzilla, even this movie, that's a thing you can point to, is that it's just like, we've seen this stuff before. Like, are you really doing anything new? Or are you just mixing and matching things you have already done before,
But it's good to know the reason why. I think it's like important to know the context if you're going to give that critique,
Yeah, just like corporate art throughout all of history, everyone's overworked and underpaid, and that sometimes results in not the best art ever made. So,
sometimes.
Who would have thunk it? Who would have thunk it?
Yeah. Huh.
Yeah. That's how we get this movie, essentially. But I think the big thing to talk about is just all these new people that are suddenly working on this movie. So I'm just going to go through them one by one. So the director, Jun Fukuda. So at the end of 1965, Toho, again, part of budget cuts, was starting to discontinue certain guaranteed jobs and cutting costs. So, cool. Like at this point, this was during the studio system, right? Where it's sort of like you could get a yearly contract. You can get an annual contract that's like, you are now on our payroll. You're guaranteed to direct X number of movies this year. And this is your flat rate. You don't have to renegotiate for every movie, right? This is during that transition where they stop doing it and start becoming what we feel kind of the more modern day approach to filmmaking, where you have to just negotiate per movie essentially and per project.
Yeah. I've never thought a whole lot, like this is something I was aware of, this change from one thing to the sort of current system, like the studio system versus what we do now. But I've never thought a lot about it, and I'm curious to know more if you know more about it. But like, it seems like each one would have massive advantages, but also massive disadvantages. Because I feel like in the studio system, you're guaranteed that yearly contract, but I wonder how much more it sort of lends to like overworking someone, because you do just have a period of time that you're assigned stuff. Is that
Probably
something that you get the sense of, or?
I don't know that I'm the best expert on the sort of intricacies of that. And I think that there's probably differences between the Hollywood studio system and like the Japanese studio system.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
But from reading stuff, I know that there were a lot. I don't know about the overworking thing necessarily. Though the Sekizawa thing makes it feel like that was the case, at least for him.
Because it's not like you could choose to take a break between this contract and the next.
Right. And I think the two things that do come up in everything whenever I read about these guys is that one thing is that you often end up directing things and working on movies that you like don't really care about,
Right.
which certainly happens nowadays too, because it's more, you're going to take projects you don't want to work on because you need the paycheck. But in this case, it's like the paycheck is guaranteed, but that doesn't guarantee you might spend that entire year working on projects that like you hate because you're required to work for the studio. And also like it creates a culture where if you do want to be like, this other studio is making something that I would be really good for and making me an offer, I would like to work for them. You either can't without breaking contract, or if you are able to find a way around it and work for a different studio for like one movie, you often will get blacklisted, or they'll just be like, all right, well, we're not going to renew your contract next year, then fuck you.
Yeah.
Whereas now it's like, there's certain loyalties that you may or may not have, but for the most part, it's kind of understood that movie making is kind of a gig economy and you can bounce around studio and studio to filmmaker, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It definitely makes it seem like the role of a director and writer, especially, would be very different in under each system, for sure.
Yeah. I mean, that's why you get Honda directing movies that he's not really doesn't have his heart in. And he's like a good director and very passionate about what he does. So he always does a good job in the movies that he makes, but
he has to make that movie.
But he has to make them,
wanted to or not. Yeah.
You know, and we've talked about some of the weird, like push pull, like kind of contrasting feelings that'll come up because of that, you know? Mm-hmm. I bring all that up because I think unsurprisingly, like Honda was one of the people that was affected by this because he was under an annual director's contract and instead ended up on a project by project basis with it. He'd essentially have to just talk to Tanaka with movie to movie, which I think Honda was not super like happy about, because it's like suddenly your job security is kind of lost.
Yeah.
You know?
That's what's so weird too, because like my first gut reaction to that, having heard about some of the like conflict that Ishirō Honda ends up being a part of, I'm sort of like, oh man, you're free. But then, it's like, well, but it's not as secure. Right. There's no guarantee you get to make your next movie because you have to fight for every single one of them.
Right.
Yeah, so, that's so weird.
Pros and cons, you know, and even like Honda's biography, like they even mention that like it's really unclear if Honda explicitly was like, all right, well then I'm not going to direct the next Godzilla movie, or if Toho specifically didn't ask him back. That's like not really strictly documented anywhere, because it's entirely possible that like Tanaka knew that Honda was frustrated with the last few Godzilla movies and it's sort of like, maybe I'll give him a break. And also Honda was directing War of Gargantuas with Toho like the same year. So like he's still doing a Toho movie. So it's not like he's like out of work or whatever either. So it does kind of feel like it makes sense for this to be the point that they try someone else.
Yeah.
And one of Honda's quotes that are in that biography that I think kind of support that is he says, frankly, there's a part of me that felt that I had made too many of these films. There were certain projects I would not have wanted to make. And as you take a look back at my past works, you can see that I resisted personifying and giving human-like characteristics to the monsters. Those are things I truly had a difficult time making and filming. And, you know, you're only going to get more and more of that stuff, you know.
Yeah, it's so interesting. There's so many things you can't know, obviously, and there's so many things that are hard to imagine because they didn't go this way. But it would be interesting to kind of get the version of the Godzilla series, if there even were one, if it were entirely up to Ishirō Honda to decide what each story was, you know?
Yeah. I mean, he might just be like, no more. We'll only do
one.
Right.
Like, you know exactly.
What I mean? Like, he might have just been like, no. Do a different movie. Do a different kaiju.
Right. And like, sorry, Ishirō Honda, I don't want to live in that world. So, like, you know?
Yeah. I will say this, you know, we are going to see him directing other Godzilla movies. It's not like I would have made a bigger deal if Astro Monster was his last ever Godzilla movie. He's still going to come back, but it's just, we're not going to consistently see him directing every single Godzilla movie going forward. You know? Yeah. So in comes Jun Fukuda. He was specifically approached to direct this by Toho. He didn't jump on to sign on for this. He was asked to do it and hired to do it, which we'll come into play later.
Okay.
He was brought on like kind of, I think, after the point that the switched from a Kong movie to a Godzilla movie. I think he said like the first script he ever saw was a Godzilla script.
Okay.
He was about a decade younger than Honda was. He actually had served as Honda's assistant for Rodan. So I do think there's sort of like a young blood aspect, but he'd been working in this sphere for a while. And I think he was noticed because he had a lot of success with this franchise of teen films called Young Guy. And it is very much like there's literally like one of the most popular ones was a movie called Young Guy in Hawaii. So I think it is like,
oh, wow.
Yeah, it is those types of movies like Ernest Goes to Blank. Like that's what Young Guy was. So there's these comedy movies that were hitting really big. And actually, I think Toho even felt that the only reason that like Mantango survived at the box office was because it was featured alongside Young Guy in Hawaii, which was the bigger draw. So like, you know, I think that they're looking for like hot, young, commercial popcorn sensibility filmmaker to boost, which, you know, very, very Hollywood, very media corporation mindset for how to approach getting, you know, making more money off of your movies, right?
Yeah.
Not surprised.
Yeah, not at all.
Yeah. In 1965, he directed 100 Shot, 100 Killed, which I'm really interested in watching because it's actually an action comedy spoof of James Bond films. It stars Akira Takarada as the James Bond parody hero and Akihiko Harada as the villain, with Masaru Sato providing the score. So what you see in this movie was first in that James Bond spoof, 100 Shot, 100 Killed.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so I think that movie also did well too. So Tanaka picked him to obviously to step in as Honda's replacement, and Fukuda was like, "I'm gonna just carry over all my guys from the James Bond movie that I did," basically.
Yeah.
So, and I think you definitely see some James Bond influences at certain points in this movie too.
Yeah, the influences on this movie, even if I didn't know where Jun Fukuda was coming from, are very, very clear.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's I don't remember what movie it's come up before in like one of the movies before, but it's like James Bond was fucking ridiculously popular in Japan. Like obviously this is the height of James Bond everywhere, but it was also very popular in Japan too. So it was like I think even before Fukuda came on, like Sekizawa had James Bond sort of riffs in the script to begin with, and then Fukuda's like, I also like James Bond. Let's even heighten them even more, you know. So I think that also changes the tone a bit of the movie, you know.
The English name for 100 Shot, 100 Killed is Iron Finger. That's Iron subtle. Finger?
You know what? Sure.
Respect, I guess.
Yeah, respect. I do want to watch it though. I kind of when parody movies are good, they're like really good. So like Airplane's one of my favorite movies ever, and I would love to see like a 60s like Japanese cinema take on a parody of a British film franchise. You know what I mean?
Well,
it sounds so interesting.
Yeah, especially because there are at this point so many various like James Bond spoof or parodies between like Johnny English and Austin Powers, and you know here's our a Japanese one, Get Smart. Yeah. So it'd be cool to see another take on it. Yeah.
All of that said, this is why I was like kind of put a pin in Fukuda not being not being enthusiastically coming to Toho to direct a Godzilla movie. He doesn't really have like amazing things to say about his experience working with Godzilla. He complained a lot because they had to understandably complained a lot because they had to drastically cut sequences to fit them into this prescribed running time that Toho gave him. So like they would come up with ideas, but then Toho would be like, your movie has to be like 86 minutes or however long it is. Yeah. So I think because of that, and I think because of the low budget he was given, he's kind of expressed that he was very dissatisfied with the movie. I think at certain points he's said that he disowned the movie. He's referred to it years later as an quote old wound. So
damn. But you didn't find that he was like opposed to working on a Godzilla movie, right?
No, right.
Because that was my concern, was that like as a young hot director, he was like, this is bullshit. I've been assigned to the old monster movie stuff.
I think it could be, this is all based on conjecture, obviously, but I don't think that it doesn't feel like he went into it in bad faith with an attitude. Sure. I feel like he was just like, he got a job. and these are seemingly popular movies. And then he started working on them and realized that working on these movies was just not fun.
Sure.
And he didn't really get to do anything that he wanted. And he didn't really get to like make a good movie out of it in his eyes. And he still like would return and like he directs the next Godzilla movies. He directs a couple of other ones, but like he's always ranted in interviews about it. And it's like, you know, he's talked about like they never should have made sequels to the original Godzilla. The budgets were awful. He liked none of his Godzilla films and talks about how he preferred to direct comedies instead.
Sure.
So like, you know, I think it's sort of like he ended up just like I think sometimes like Hollywood filmmakers get trapped in a franchise machine, or like they're trapped in the MCU or something like that. And it's sort of like, it's not that it is a bad gig per se, but it does like, well, as an artist, you're trapped under all of these constraints from corporate mandates, and then you don't have any room to make the art that you actually want to make and think that you'd be good at. You know?
Right. The kind of thing that you know, people, you probably see as, and people probably see as like an enticing opportunity or like a cool opportunity. And then you get in the space and you're like, is it worth it?
Yeah.
You know?
I think you talk to any, I'm speaking from experience, but like you talk to any creative who gets a create like job as a creative, whether it's like a writer or an artist or something like that, or any kind of designer, you know, and I think for some people it's like, oh, the dream gig is to get it and be able to do that work steady, where I can just actually get a year, like a salary, yearly paycheck to create art, you know? But the only way to do that usually is to work for a corporation, and you're always going to get like noted to death by executives because you are ultimately working for a corporation. It's sort of the trade-off. Either you either have stability, but don't really get to make good art, even if you're theoretically working in an artistic space, or you have way less stability and probably make way less money, but actually get to make the art you want to make. Yeah. You know, so
you said it. Time, flat, circle.
Yep. The score, Masaru Sato, obviously is one of the guys that were brought on from 100 Shot, 100 Killed, but we know him because he did do the score for Godzilla Raids Again.
Okay.
So here's the thing. I think that Fukuda specifically didn't want Ifukube back just because he didn't want those sort of like the intense like war march kind of tones for his movie. And to be fair, it wouldn't really fit with the tone of this movie. Totally. I think Tanaka didn't agree with that decision, but Fukuda like fought him on it and won out in the end. And Sato had worked with him on you know, his previous movie, like I said, so we brought him in. But here's the thing, because I think we found his Raids Again score to be pretty unremarkable, but that was very, very early in his career. That was literally like his second or third movie that he'd composed. In the in-between time, the dude ends up doing a bunch of scores for Kurosawa. He does like Hidden Fortress and Yojimbo and Redbeard. He does a bunch of movies with Fukuda. I think that gave him more cred. I would argue he improved a lot over time. And so he shows up in this movie and suddenly there's this fucking wild ass score that really sticks out.
Look, the moment this movie started and I heard that like surf rock inspired score, I was like, something special is happening, even if this movie sucks. I love this score, and I think it makes so much sense.
It's wild.
And that's me saying it. I have a hard time internalizing the score on a first watch, and I immediately was like in love with everything it was doing.
It's very striking,
and it makes perfect sense that like the Raids Again score following up on Godzilla early in someone's career is not going to be one, an easy thing to pull off, but two, a remarkable thing if it's already this sort of rushed sort of capitalization on something that was as big as Godzilla, right? So getting the space with all your experience and then having this opportunity to kind of like do something wildly different in the same space is really cool. And I'm so glad with what he did. I'm so happy with what he did.
Yeah, I'm very glad that he got like another chance to do a Godzilla movie. I do think it's such a cool sound to have, because it doesn't sound like you would, based on the other Showa era movies, and even based on a lot of stuff that comes after it, it's not a sound that you would expect to be in a kaiju movie.
No, but it works so well with this really particular movie, with so many of the pieces that are there.
It's a weird, like, breezy beach movie that's also like kind of a James Bond riff. Like, you would have to have that kind of strange music, you know?
Yeah. Well, it's funny because when you think of like, it's funny because the sort of like surf rock thing is called that because it's more associated with like beachy vibes and sort of like teens dancing on the beach and surfing and having a good time.
Right.
But it really is like a big part of the James Bond like musical identity too. So the fact that this is both like simultaneously inspired by kind of both of those things at first seems weird, but then is like actually almost impossible not to be, like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's such a perfect little mixture.
I think it really helps the tone of this movie too.
I think so, yeah.
Because I think this is a movie that's not. It's the tone of this. We'll get into it or whatever. But like the tone of this movie, I think is such an interesting balance that I think other Godzilla movies have struggled with a bit because it's not a super serious movie, but it's also, I wouldn't call it a comedic one.
No.
I think it is just like a fun, adventurous movie with like a good, like lighthearted sensibility, but it takes all of its stuff very seriously, with just characters that are unafraid to make jokes,
Yeah. It feels very much like a fun, breezy movie to see in the summer that isn't like your summer blockbuster,
Yeah. The other new person, Sadamasa Arikawa, doing the effects. So this is towards the end of Tsuburaya's life. He actually dies, I think, 4 years after this movie comes out. So I think, he's getting older. He's also very busy with his own production company, Tsuburaya Productions, which it did Ultra Q. The first season of Ultraman is happening at this very time. So like he's got a lot going on, and you can't ask this man to be like making, doing the effects of movies at the exact same time. Right. So he's still kind of involved in that. He does have like final say on the effects sequences, but all things point to him being more of a supervisor role, right? Like kind of he's like a creative consultant kind of thing.
Sure.
And they do all the stuff and show him, and he like checks the box and says it's okay.
Yeah.
And can provide feedback if he wants. So Arikawa is doing the actual work of being the director of special effects. He was a protege of Tsuburaya. He was specifically chosen to do this. And he'd been working for a while. He'd worked first as a cameraman. He was shooting the effects for every Toho science fiction film from 1954 to 1966. So he's very familiar with it. Wow. He was the special effects director for multiple episodes of Ultra Q and Ultraman and future Ultraman stuff as well. So like he's very much in the tokusatsu sphere. So, I think it's like just one of those guys who just had a proper resume, had the experience. Why not bring him in to do it? I think the big issue that he faced was, again, budget stuff. Toho did not want to give him the budget that they normally get for these movies. And specifically War of the Gargantuous is happening at the same time. And I think because that one's a sequel to a popular movie, they're I think putting a lot more attention and budget on that one. So Arikawa was forced to economize. So like he was asked specifically to avoid expensive composite shots. A lot of the action was intentionally like not around miniature buildings. Like there's very little property destruction in this movie. Most of it's in the big Toho pool, because you could just throw a couple monsters in there and then just film some cool shit in the pool, basically, You
know what though? Like, as much as some of that stuff is a bummer to hear, this movie kind of works with some of those limitations because of the setting that it is. And like the miniature work in this one, I think, is as charming as any others. And I think because there isn't a ton of it, there are fewer opportunities for me to like point at something and be like, that looks weird,
Sure.
Especially if they didn't have a huge budget to do it. So like the things that we do get, a lot of them have like little tiny people on them. And a lot of times my least favorite miniatures are the ones where you can see the little tiny people. And I feel like these ones are all pretty good, for the limited amount. Yeah, for the limited amount that we get them.
The movement that they add to like the
rowing on the boat.
The rowing on the boat. Because there are legit points when you do have to like do a double take to make sure it's actually a doll that you're looking at.
And I think it's probably the limitations that kind of force them into a space where like you can't overuse them because you don't have a ton of variation or you don't have endless iterations,
Right,
And I think part of that is, or you have to obscure them in a particular way. Like with the storm, like there's a miniature version of the yacht that gets thrown around. And because of the way they throw it around, I think you kind of have to double take,
Yeah.
It's for as little as they get to do with it. I was impressed and charmed with what we got.
Yeah, and I think too it made them kind of innovate a bit with the underwater stuff that they hadn't really done as much
Oh,
of.
yeah.
Like there's been underwater things before, but like full ass underwater fights, they legit were using like off screen like aqua lungs essentially. So like that basically like Godzilla and Ebirah would be fighting underwater. The actors would be holding their breath and then they would like go over and basically like catch a breath in between takes.
Oh
and then
my
go back into fighting.
God. Fuck that shit. That's like, okay, the first time I ever saw something like that, wasn't expecting to hit this on your bingo board, anybody, but the first time I ever saw something like that sort of underwater performance was in the episode where Misty in Pokemon goes back to her like home gym with her sisters and does a performance, and she goes like underneath a shell and like takes a breath from one of those things, and I was like, that's how they do that stuff?
Yeah.
And I thought it was science fiction. I was like, there's no way that's real. That can't be
it's
real.
real.
And then when I learned it was real later in life, I was like, holy shit. And then to do that when you're in like a fucking monster costume,
Right.
that's horrible.
Yeah, I was gonna start talking about the monster costumes anyway, but like, because one of the things that Nakajima had to do with this movie is because so much time was spent underwater, is that he actually wore a wetsuit under the Godzilla suit in this case because he would just be in the water for so long.
Oh my gosh!
He said it took a full week to complete all of the just the water scenes.
Sure.
Specifically, he said he worked overtime until about 8:00 every day. He says he basically lived in the water. He would need to stay in the water all day in the suit. So like he would be in a wetsuit in the Godzilla suit, just hanging out in the water, just like basically all day for a whole week. Essentially,
I hate that for him.
Yeah. It sounds
wow
miserable, but also I want to do it.
Not for a week, you would not. I feel like
not for a week. I would like to shoot a short film where I get to do it, and it would be hard and challenging and miserable.
Yeah,
but it would also be really cool.
I mean, it's certainly an accomplishment. Like he can put that trophy on his shelf and show it off for sure.
Right.
My
I'm sure
God.
as soon as he was done, he was like, "All right, do the land stuff. Now you're gonna have to like doing fucking flips on land and shit."
Yeah.
Wow. I think there were points that they would basically have just basically like kind of like an aquarium, like a glass aquarium, and they just like shoot through the glass for them, which I think is pretty normal. But there are some scenes of where they just have the Godzilla suit, I think, just like underwater as well if they need to. So
I'm honestly surprised. I wasn't expecting that that's actually how they did it.
Yeah.
I don't know necessarily what I thought. I don't know if I just figured that they had sort of like water, like they were shooting through water, but they weren't in water or something.
Yeah.
But like I was fully not expecting for you to tell me they were just actually underwater using what did you call the lung thing?
Aqua lungs.
An aqua lung. That's bonkers. Holy shit.
I mean, and I think it did fuck up the suit because like this suit is like in tatters. I think by the end of it, they ended up using this as just like the stunt suit just for Godzilla water scenes for like many movies after this because like it's been through so much damage and stuff.
Sure.
But yeah, we already started talking about it. But this Godzilla, it's still Haruo Nakajima. This is technically the same suit as Invasion of Astro Monster, except this is just really funny. So it started off as that. The Daisenzo Goji suit is the name of the Astro Monster suit. During the shooting of this movie, Super Eye Productions asked to borrow just the head of the suit to use in Ultraman, which is pretty normal. That they're all it's all kind of Toho related, right? They'll swap up monster parts and stuff. It's going to come up again in this movie.
But Godzilla's head.
Well, see, here's what happened. Basically, the head of the previous suit that was used before the Astro Monster suit, that had been modified to be the monster Gomez in Ultra Q, which means that they now had this like headless Godzilla suit in their possession that they wanted to reuse for the monster Jirus. So Toho approved the request to use the current Goji's suit head to remove that, graft that onto the body of the previous Godzilla suit that they had used just the head for previously, Frankenstein this a different head from a different suit to a different suit, modified it to create that new monster. And then Toho created an imperfect replica of the current Goji's head, grafted that head onto the other suit that they now had for the remainder of filming for Ebirah Horror of the Deep. which looks slightly different from the suit that they gave to Subaru Productions for Ultraman.
That is a mess.
I don't understand why it had to be
Also,
like that.
It didn't. It didn't.
I don't even know if I explained that correctly because I was confused when I was reading about it. But it's really just like two different Godzilla suits, but three different heads that are just being mixed and matched essentially.
But like when they borrow that or when they make their new Frankenstein Godzilla monster for Ultraman, they do other things to it, right? It's not literally just Godzilla in Ultraman. Okay.
They paint it and stuff like that,
Because that's what was surprising to me. I was like I understand using bits and pieces of monsters for another show or something, but like your title character, it feels weird. But so you would have to do something.
But also if you watch Ultraman,
you could still tell very easily.
Gotcha. It's like it's a famously funny thing that it's just like, there's Godzilla that he's fighting, that kind of stuff. There's plenty of Toho things. There's a I think it's Green Man. Is it Green Man where he just like fights Manila at one point? That's just it's a totally normal thing. It's just very funny when it happens. But like, so there are points in this movie where I think there is like a slightly different head that I think is described as like a little more calm and less fierce looking than the original head. I don't know. I mean, I didn't really notice it when I was watching it. So yeah, I mean, that's all I really have. It's the same suit. I do think it's kind of falling apart by this point.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I guess, but
I guess the benefit to being a Godzilla suit is that like they're supposed to look sort of craggly anyway.
That's
I
true.
suppose.
Yeah.
But I mean, it doesn't look fresh.
No, it definitely doesn't look fresh. It looks a little flabby at some point, the way that skin just kind of moves around and shakes around and stuff. But you know what? It's fine. I don't mind.
Yeah.
I don't really pay attention to it that much. Mothra, it was kind of the same deal. They just sort of reused the main prop from Mothra versus Godzilla. They used the large like Mothra prop with the 2-meter wingspan and the main prop as well. So I think two different ones.
Why did they need to use two different props for when it's just like chilling? That was really weird to me.
Don't know.
I was like, that's bizarre. That's all I have to say about it.
I'm not really sure. I think because there's like maybe it was different close-ups versus like the one where there's like a matte painting behind it to depict it. Maybe that's like maybe just one looked better than the other in full view. I don't know. Yeah, but that's all. It's the same one. Yeah, it does look a little. She does look a little.
She looks a little tired. They woke her up a little earlier than she needed to.
Yeah. She has a little bit of bedhead.
Yeah.
Could have given her a little brush maybe.
Relatable.
But yeah. Our new guy, Ebirah.
Yeah.
Ebirah is played by Hiroshi Sekita. Mostly had bit parts in TV and film. This is the year he gets into suit acting because he plays Ebirah and one of the titular kaiju in War of the Gargantuous in the same year. We will run into him again. He did end up retiring from acting in 1969. He was only like 37 years old, so I guess he was just like, I'm done. I played a giant lobster, so I'm good. I've done everything I need to do with my life.
I mean, I'm forever like totally blown away by the people who do this their entire lives. So him retiring at 37 after doing monster stuff like makes way more sense to me than anything else.
It's like when like an Olympic gymnast is like retiring at like age 30. It's just like, sort of like
you've been through it.
Right. You don't want to ruin your body more than you probably already have.
Yeah, this makes so much more sense to me than learning that like the stunt performers in Sentai are like 65 years old and you're like, please sleep. Like you've done it all.
Yeah. The suit's composed of a separate like upper and lower half. Usually Sekita is like only in the upper half for like a lot of the scenes where he's just above water because you don't see the bottom half. But if they ever needed the two together, the two halves are joined without an actor inside and manipulated like a prop. So basically he's either it's him in the top half or it's basically puppeted with the two halves together.
Okay. That actually kind of clarifies things and answers some questions that I was kind of scratching my head over at certain points.
Yeah.
So convincing.
Yeah. I mean, it's still like, I'm not watching it thinking like, oh, that's a prop and that's a guy. Like I couldn't tell. I think they did it really well. They did make a separate model of the claw whenever they just need the giant claw coming out of the ocean, which is fucking cool as shit. I love that they did that.
Dude.
So good. So good.
So cool.
Yeah. What do you think of this guy?
I think Ebirah is really cool. I think it's a cool design. I think the suit itself looks really cool. I think the kinds of things you can do with it are really cool. I think one of the challenges with Ebirah is that they make its face like so kind of lobster and monstrous that like I would not expect to see this monster again, because I don't know that people would connect with this monster, even though it's like a bad guy. Like Ghidorah was also a bad guy, and it immediately kind of has personality, you know, or like even like Rodan sort of debuts as like an antagonist monster, but like it has a pretty clear personality. Ebirah feels way more like a large animal monster than I think a lot of the other ones do, because it is much more animalistic. But I don't know. But I like it. But that's not like a dig on it itself. Like, I think it's really cool. It's just different.
That is an interesting observation, because I mean, everything has been moving in the direction of, you know, more anthropomorphic kaiju throughout the last few movies. So it's funny that like Godzilla certainly is like more anthropomorphic in this movie, but it's like he's kind of the one who gets it. Like Ebirah, you're right, is just kind of a giant
mutant lobster, you know?
Like that's it. Yeah. That is really interesting. And I do think that like when I was reading, you know, Arikawa talk about it, like he was sort of saying that they were making a point to kind of emphasize certain features like eeriness of his face and mouth movements, like the strength of the claws, you know,
specific eyes. And when you do get a chance to see its mouth, it is really creepy.
It's interesting, because considering how breezy this movie is and how fun it is, it's kind of interesting that they're kind of taking a little bit of a step like backwards in time to when the monsters were meant to be scary, you know, because they haven't really like Ghidorah is awesome, but I wouldn't call him like scary in the way that like some early, you know, kaiju movie were. So it's kind of funny that like at this point we're introducing a monster who's really just intended to be scary.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, and like, I appreciate it, because if this is supposed to be your deep sea monster, I mean, I think Ebirah is scary as a monster that is typically submerged underwater that you don't see until it's too late. You know, like most kaiju you would see coming. Ebirah you would not see coming. And I think that's cool. And I think it only kind of works because it is sort of this mutant sea creature as opposed to a more anthropomorphic type of monster. It feels kind of like, you know, obviously not exactly the same, but like so many like Toku monsters or like Sentai and Kamen Rider monsters are very anthropomorphized, you know, like rubber suits, but like still humanoid. But then like you watch like I don't know, like Kamen Rider Kuga, and sometimes it's just like, oh, that's just a fucked up looking bug. Like that's just a bug, you know? Ebirah is kind of like that, where you're like, oh, you're just a fucked up lobster.
Yeah.
So in some ways it stands very much apart from anything I've seen so far. I honestly like Megaguirus might be sort of like the closest I've seen to what Ebirah is, because Megaguirus is kind of like a giant mutated dragonfly, but even then it's still more anthropomorphized than Ebirah is. Yeah,
even she would like make like shocked like facial expressions and like, taunt Godzilla and stuff at certain points.
Right.
Yeah, it's so funny. Oh yeah,
I like it. I like it.
I like it too.
Actually.
I like it too. I think it's really cool, because I think we've kind of been missing that.
Yeah.
In these Godzilla movies, you know, the past few from the Showa era for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too the fact that it's not like a bipedal creature either. Like, I think also makes a big difference, because whether it's Godzilla or Kong fighting it, it's still like a creature that is more humanoid on two legs fighting just a fucking like multi-legged sea bug, you know, like that immediately is a very different experience.
Yeah. I really like Ebirah. I really have no idea, not that you've asked, but I'm sure you would. I really have no idea if I'm ever going to see Ebirah again and what that would even look like, you know? Like, especially if it's Ebirah in a different era. Like, I can't imagine it would look like this anymore. I feel like they would pretty dramatically update it in some way, but I don't know.
Yeah. Last, just a couple fun facts. If you ever wondered, Ebirah's name is derived from the Japanese word ebi, which refers to several types of crustacean, like lobsters, shrimp, and crayfish. So very simple. Love that. Also, in the Pokemon anime, Eternatus's cry in the anime is a combination of Ebirah's roar and Gamera's roar.
That is such a strange poll for what Eternatus is. Like, I mean, I guess I'm not familiar with Gamera yet, but I know what Gamera looks like, you know, so strange, really strange. Huh.
Yep. Really odd. Well,
so Pokemon was going to come up anyway, everybody.
yeah, there you go.
Huh. That's wild.
Yeah, so odd.
I would have guessed
how random that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and this is just a minor thing. So there's like a giant condor that just randomly shows up in this movie.
Yeah. Any notes on why that happens? Because that's confusing.
I think it's just another thing that got mutated. I think like in supplemental stuff, it's like just like Ebirah was, mutated from a crustacean into a giant crustacean by their like nuclear waste from the experimentation. It also happened to a condor on the island and made it big. That's it. I think that's literally all it is.
I mean, could we have given Fukuda like maybe 5 more minutes without the condor?
I think the real reason is because I think probably the vision was that there would be more consequences of like the red bamboo experiments on the island causing shit happen on the island.
Sure.
And they didn't have enough money to do any more than Ebirah and then the giant condor. And the reason they could do the giant condor is because the giant condor was just a Rodan prop that had already been remodeled to hell to be the Ultra Q, basically. Sure. So they had a Rodan prop that was basically made into a bird. They just brought that over, made it even more bird-like, and then threw that in there. So they already had it ready-made for him.
I mean, the one sort of benefit to the giant condor is that it does sort of like vibe with the idea that Ebirah is just a large mutated lobster as opposed to a unique monster in the world. So you have this giant mutated condor, you have this giant mutated lobster, and in theory there are all sorts of other giant mutated animals we would be familiar with surrounding this island that are not as distinct as Rodan or Ghidorah or Baragon, that are much more dinosaur and monster-y.
Yeah, it is just funny that it shows up and for like 8 seconds and Godzilla just like swats it away and then never heard from it again.
So weird. So it really threw me. I was like, is this going to be like each monster has their like, little mini monster and they like fight their little mini monsters against each other? Because like, I don't know. At that point, I didn't know how Mothra was factoring in. So I was like, I don't know what's going on here with this condor.
Yeah, very funny.
Still don't really, I guess.
No one does. It's fine. He was just hanging. They're allowed to hang.
Sure.
He may or may not have gotten off the island when it literally explodes, so who knows?
Nobody asked until right now, so. Sorry, Condor.
Yeah. Oh, well, you tried. I really like the cast of this movie.
They're fun.
Yeah, they're really, really fun. And
they're
it's
fun.
A lot of recognizable people. I mean, Akira Takarada, obviously. Ogata shown up as Yoshimura, the thief, playing against type as this sort of like roguish figure, which I really like. He's like really hot in this movie. I've never felt like, I mean, he was always a hot guy, but I've never felt like, oh, this is a hot guy until this movie. Well, and I think it's the yellow sweater and it is just playing the sort of like badass, too old for this shit thief man,
Yeah, I think to be fair, like, and you already said it, like he was cast as like a young hot dude in Godzilla, and he is a bit older, and he is playing a different type of character that is not just like your young hot protagonist guy. And I think generally that tends to appeal a little bit more to you and I than the sort of traditional young hot protagonist, with the exception of like Koizumi in his first appearance.
Yeah, where the hell has he been? I need to see him.
I know,
right?
Seen
him in a while. He need to just come back.
If you could just put him in every movie, please.
I know, right?
It's really all you need to please us. But yeah, I mean, that's wild. But then at the point where you also then get Akihiko Harada also in this movie,
also with an eye patch again
on the other eye, which is the funniest shit ever to me. I definitely went back and checked. I was like, please tell me this is not the same eye. And it's not, and that's brilliant. It's brilliant. It's brilliant they're both there, and it's brilliant that his eye patch is on a different eye. It's
like the weird like mirror, it's like the like mirror universe of like their first of their characters in the first Godzilla.
It's just so funny.
Yeah, that's so funny. I love
So
it.
good.
They're both really fun. Like Harada doesn't get as much to do because he really is just like the villain, but it's really fun seeing him be like an eye patch Bond villain essentially.
Exactly. I was gonna say he's like just the villain, but he's very much doing the Bond villain thing, and it's like not even remotely subtle, you know?
No, it's
which
fun.
I love.
I'm sure, like it seemed like everybody in this movie seems like they're having fun with it, and I like seeing that in a movie like this.
Yeah, it's interesting too because this cast is larger than I would probably otherwise argue it needs to be, but I think because they're fun, and because they kind of are like, for the most part, really giving it to whatever their given character is, like I don't really mind as much. They were pretty distinct. More so than I would have expected a cast of this many people to be.
Yeah, I think they do I noticed that they do a really good job in this movie of sort of giving people different things to do and not being afraid of splitting them up. Because you have
I think the splitting them up helps a lot.
Right. Because you have this trio of young guys, like all like young college students.
Yeah, your bros.
In so many ways could just be this like homogenous bunch that blend in together and you can't remember who's who. And like, to be fair, I did have to like look up what each of their names were.
Don't quiz me on their names. I still don't know them all.
But I
know their archetypes. I know which ones do what.
And they cast them well because they're three very distinct looking people.
Yes.
And then they split them each up, like, you know, one is captured for a big chunk of the movie. One is hanging out with Yoshimura for a big chunk of the movie. The other one has the brother and ends up finding the brother for a chunk of the movie. So like they give them each sort of different little roles to play throughout it. And I do wish their personalities were a little more distinct, that they went a little harder on like, you are this archetype, just to differentiate them more, because it's already kind of a broad movie anyway. But I think it says a lot that even though they didn't go super hard on making them broad, that you can still tell them apart, which is more than I can say for some groups of characters in like King Kong versus Godzilla, for example.
Right. Totally. And like, yeah, I don't know. Like I honestly think they could have afforded to make them slightly more not cartoonish, but like leaned more heavily into the archetype, which sometimes
I think so.
Sometimes I'm like nervous about. I mean, I know I've said it on various movies before, but like this one, I was like going back and forth on whether I wanted that, but I do think it would have worked just fine on this one, because they're already so distinct. So it wouldn't be like, I don't know, nothing about it would feel weird for the one guy that's like, this is my favorite guy. I don't know if you have a favorite of the sort of like bros, but the one that's sort of like the athletic one that gets captured, that's my favorite one.
He's
the
my
one that's
favorite.
sort of like, you're the rock climber. Like he's just like a little bit goofy, and you can tell that like if there weren't a larger cast, you can kind of still get a sense of like who he would be as like kind of like a young buck type like in the group who's like the athletic friend. But like has a good heart. Like he's not a bully or anything.
Yeah.
I like him.
In my notes, I always referred to him as the hoodie guy because he was
the hoodie guy. Yeah, he's wearing the brown hoodie. Yep.
Yeah. He's his character's name is Nita. I would have never
That's
guessed.
right. Nita's the one that gets captured. Yes.
Yeah. His actor's name is Hideo Sunazuka. I didn't really recognize. He's been in a bunch of Japanese movies, but none that I recognize. No other Godzilla movies. Is the only one.
I feel like he's got a really recognizable face, and I didn't know him from anything. So
yeah. So we're not going to see him again, I don't think.
Bummer.
Chotara Togen plays Ichino, who's
the one that I feel like needed to lean in maybe a little bit more to some archetype, because if there were one person that probably they could have excised and it wouldn't have changed much, it would be him, but I still like him.
Yeah, well, I wish they'd played up, because he's basically the one who's pinned with Yoshimura for the longest period of time.
Yeah.
And I wish that they could have just played with their relationship a little bit more, had they have more playful like conflicts between each other or something, or played up the like, I'm the young guy and you're the more experienced guy who's annoyed at being in the situation with me kind of thing. Yeah. And I don't think they really play up enough, you know.
The fact that this isn't a comedy, like distinctly isn't a comedy, I think is where some of that stuff gets lost. And I like it despite it not being a comedy. I think it could have worked as a comedy, and that's probably where all those things would have ended up in this movie, where they are not.
Yeah.
Because imagine those two, like you're saying, like kind of like being at
bickering.
each other's. Yeah.
Yeah. I wish we could have gotten a little more of that, but I'm not mad about it. It's very much sort of like thinking about it in retrospect, you know. That actor, he was a bystander in Dogra, so like you've seen him before technically, but
Girl,
who knows?
I don't know. A bystander.
Yeah, I know. This is his first Godzilla movie. We are going to see him a few more times.
Okay.
Yeah, and the one who's sort of the kind of like, I guess, protagonist of this trio is Ryota, who's Toru Watanabe. He had appeared briefly in 100 Shot, 100 Killed. I think that's how he ends up in this movie.
Okay.
It was sort of actually really challenging to find information on him because there's like a bunch of Toru Watanabes out there. So like, I wasn't sure if I was looking at the right one. Honestly, I haven't really found much of anything that this guy has done outside of those movies and like a couple TV shows. So I don't know.
That's fine.
But yeah,
he's in an interesting spot where like he's the protagonist, but like kind of stops being the protagonist once you've met everybody, you know?
Yeah.
Not in the Rodan way where like stops being the protagonist because you like lost your memory. Like, you know,
it becomes an ensemble piece at a certain point, and his drive to find his brother is what drives the beginning, the sort of beginning of the plot. But once they're on the island, that just becomes his plot, and everyone else is doing a bunch of other stuff. You know?
And I like him in that first like establishing part of the story. He's like really compelling, and I'm like, I figured that the movie would be largely following him.
Yeah.
So I like the stuff they were doing. But again, weirdly enough, like it doesn't like hurt the movie for him to fall back into the ensemble in a way that I feel like I should be criticizing. Like it doesn't feel like it fell apart necessarily. I don't know if it's because at the point where maybe it's because he doesn't ever stop like trying to find his brother, and then once he does find his brother, they're still doing things. It's not like they run out of stuff to do, and it's not like it's resolved halfway through and then
it's still
they just
vital
disappear or anything.
Once he finds his brother, that still ends up being very vital to the end of the movie. So like the pieces still end up fitting. It's just not in a typical narrative way, really.
Yeah. It's sort of like we thought we made you think there was one story, but in fact there are many. Yeah, because again, there are many other things happening in this movie, so it still all gets resolved. Nothing really gets dropped. I think that's why it doesn't feel unsatisfying. Totally.
His brother Yata is played by Toru Ibuki. He was one of the assassins in Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster and one of the aliens in Invasion of Astro Monster.
Amazing.
So I think this is the first time he gets to be like a more major role, and then we're going to see him pop up in a bunch of other minor roles in future movies.
Amazing. I like that they're both named Toru.
I know, right? Yeah, it's very funny. Yeah. And Dio, the Islander, of course, is Kumi Mizuno, who we've seen in the last couple of last 3 Showa movies that we've watched. Yeah.
Been
So
all
she's
over this.
Yeah. She originally was not cast in this role. It was originally going to go to Noriko Takahashi, who was in Ultra Q and had like a bit role in Frankenstein versus Baragon.
Okay.
She was originally cast, but then she got appendicitis during production and had to
no.
No. Yeah. Which sucks. But I like her I like her in every movie.
Her, but I like Kumi Mizuno. So
yeah, I like her a lot.
Great.
She's always good in everything she does. So like, I'm not our loss.
Yeah, absolutely. Not mad at it.
Yeah. And I do like, I think she's they always used her really well in being a female lead that I think is like does do a lot. Like she still gets damsel in distress stuff because it's still 1966, but like she is a vital part of this group.
Well,
and
yes, one thing that is so like such a strong distinction here versus so many other movies is that she is the sole female character in this ensemble, but she's not just the girl. Like she has a specific role and relationships and motivations, and like everything is informed by that. It's not like she's just there to fill in whatever spot you would put the girl in. And I think it shows in this movie where it doesn't always show in some of the movies where there's only one female character.
Yeah. She still kind of takes action and has like very specific like goals and like agency and is like part of this group. Part of, I think, the charm of this movie in its cast is that it truly is a ragtag group of misfits ensemble.
Yeah.
Which Godzilla movies don't usually do, like most of the time.
Right. Yeah,
it has been
actually.
Here is your group of reporters, or here's your group of military people, or here's your group of doctors, here are your group of scientists or whatever. It's really nice that it is like the whole point of this movie ultimately cast wise is that these are like the people you would least expect to take down this like secret government and or corporate organization, like a Bond villains on an island that gets blown up,
Yeah.
That it is a thief, a bunch of college students, and an islander who's an escaped slave all teaming up to take down this organization is pretty fucking cool. No, and I think that helps her role a lot.
That's such a good point, though, because so many movies we've talked about have had either a glue character that is connected to everybody and therefore everyone's connected, or everybody sort of like overlaps in their relationships so that by the time you have a group, you're sort of like, everybody knows each other and we know how they all know each other. This is like so different than that, in that there's like 3 or 4 distinct sort of places these people come from, and there are several people who do not know each other and would not have ever known each other. And I think that is different, and I like it.
I think it's another thing that gives this movie a really unique flair to it that we've never gotten before in a Godzilla movie, which is really, really cool.
Yeah, I'm glad you pointed that out.
Yeah. The only other cast thing that I think was worth pointing out, you've got your typical like Jun Sasaki always shows up as military commanders and doctors.
My guy,
another base commander guy. Like, you're coming up with some sort of commander, like big surprise.
Yeah, he gets to wear a uniform hat. Where's June?
Never seen that before. Yeah, so that's normal. No surprise there, but. Other thing I want to bring up, the Shobijin do show up in this movie, but they are not played by the Peanuts. They are played by twins Yuko Okada and Yoko Sugiura. They are known as Pair Bambi in this movie. It was their sort of stage name that they gave them. But this is kind of the only thing they ever really did. It wasn't like they were pre-established singers or whatever. I think this probably was... because twins are rarer in Japan, so I think they probably intended to be like, maybe this could be a launching point for a career, but they just never really took off after this movie. And honestly, I think they just kind of disappeared for a long time. But I found an article from 2011 where Yoko, one of the twins, appeared at this Mothra birth celebration.
Aww.
Yeah, I thought that was really sweet. Just however many year anniversary for Mothra, and it's like one of her very few public appearances she ever did. And I read a blog where like had some quotes from her at that event where she had talked about how she just retired from entertainment and became a housewife and mother, but her sister in the intermediary time had unfortunately died by the time of that event. So she came to she talks about how she came to a screening with her daughter and watched the movie for the first time in 45 years and was apparently overwhelmed with emotion, like spoke very enthusiastically about her experience on it, and has like a lot of love for having worked on that movie, which is really cool.
That's very sweet.
Very, very sweet. Yeah. I think it's like really unfortunate to have to follow up the Peanuts. Cause I
of course.
Cause it like, they're fine in the movie. They don't get nearly as much as the Peanuts got to do as the Shobijin and past ones, The
thing is, like, I actually totally understand why they would see this opportunity, not the twins, but like the production company, to be like, okay, so the Peanuts, who were already stars, played these characters, and these characters now have appeared a few times, so they're recognizable. So this is like our opportunity to sort of like reverse engineer the situation and like create our own sort of like pop stars. But then like, if you're going to try to do that, you got to give Pair Bambi more to do in this movie than they get. Like, it's no wonder... I mean, I guess if they never show up in another movie, that's also a pretty massive factor. But, like, it's no wonder that they don't stick from this alone,
Yeah, I don't think the song that they sing is nearly as catchy as any other Mothra song.
It's good, but it's not catchy,
Right. I can't remember what it is in my head right now if I tried, but I could sing multiple other Mothra songs.
Sure. Sure.
They did the best that they could. They were fine. They're perfectly charming, but they really had like not really anything to do in this movie, unfortunately.
They only they stand in one place the whole time.
Well, you know who else does that? Mothra.
Well, yeah.
The real villain of this movie is like being sleepy. All the monsters are so sleepy. Everybody just honk-shooing the whole time.
Yeah.
Like real. I get that they deserve to rest, but it is just very funny that it's like all this catastrophe is happening. Everyone's like, Mothra, your people have been kidnapped or being enslaved. Yeah. And it's just like, but she's still, the alarm clock has not gone off.
You know what?
Her beauty rest.
If we just let monsters sleep is the moral of this fucking movie. Because Godzilla, sleeping. Mothra, sleeping. Ebirah, bothered by whatever the fuck's going on this island. Like, let them sleep.
Let them sleep. That's very true. That said, I do think it's a little weird. Monster. I mean, I love that. I think that is hilarious and true. Yes. I do think it's sort of a weird choice that the last time we saw Mothra, she was a larva. They could have very easily, if they wanted to make her look a little better than just being like a honk-shoo queen, they could have just had her be in the cocoon throughout this movie, and then she breaks out of the cocoon at the end of it.
True.
And I have to wonder the only reason they didn't do that was just a budget.
They have to build a cocoon.
They have to build a cocoon and have to shoot Mothra hatching out of the cocoon.
Yeah.
I think it's probably the only reason. Because that would have made so much sense if she's in the cocoon the entire time. It's like a perfect like in-universe justification for why she's not involved.
Yeah, I like that. You know? I would like that better. I didn't give it any thought just based on like how these monsters tend to reappear in things, but I like
it would have made a lot of
yours
sense.
Better. Yeah.
Yeah, because otherwise she's just a sleepy
she's just sleepy queen. And sitting there and looks different based on whatever scene you're looking at.
Uh-huh.
I can't get over that. The two models just look so different. It's not like they're subtly different.
Look, they were working with what they could, I guess.
It's fine. I like this movie a lot.
I like this movie a lot too. I love this movie opens with a dance marathon, and there's immediately like a psychic at the beginning too. I'm like, great, we're fucking in it, man.
Yes. Absolutely. Love that there's a psychic. You know what? I never would have known this, but I love a psychic in my Godzilla movies. This is a thing that I've learned about myself.
Yeah.
I love a psychic in a Godzilla movie. And the fact that there's a dance marathon just felt perfect given that we opened with the surf rock. Like everything, music, it just everything kind of comes together in like a beautiful way. Also, how do dance marathons work? There was like a panel, so I'm assuming that like they get to ultimately decide if you have stopped dancing. Like, obviously, if you fall, you're done. But, like, what qualifies as dancing? I'm assuming the panel decides.
I guess they're kind of the judge of that. That's why you can't really half-ass it, because you don't want them to kick you out for not dancing.
Number 45, get off the floor. Also, why did Ryota think that he was going to be able to show up with only 15 people left and win?
I know. It doesn't make any sense.
He seems very young. I think his brother is 23, so...
Yeah, he seems very young and like a little bit... He makes some funny little choices in the movie, you know, once they get on the yacht. So like, I think he's a very driven and dedicated young man, but that doesn't mean you have to be very smart.
I think he's also quite idealistic. I think you have to be I think you have to be pretty idealistic and pretty like blindingly optimistic to like steal a boat, and be like, this is the correct thing for me to do, is to steal this boat.
Okay, it is, when you break it down, it is truly fucking bonkers how these characters get from point A to point B. Because basically, Ryota goes to a psychic who tells him that his brother, who is, disappeared in the ocean, is still alive. So now he's driven to win a yacht from a dance competition to sail somewhere and find his brother, who's just lost in the ocean, doesn't win the dance competition, decides to go with his new college buddies to the marina to just break into a yacht, I guess steal the yacht. But when they go to the yacht, there's already someone there who turns out to have been a thief who is also stealing the yacht after having like robbed a bank or whatever. And then in the middle of the night, when the thief's sort of like, I guess you can just sleep on my yacht, because he doesn't give a fuck. He's also a thief. It's not really his yacht. And then in the middle of the night, he fucking decides to just sail the yacht away with everyone sleeping on it to go find his brother in the middle of the ocean.
It's
and
incredible.
Assumes everyone will be cool with it. It's so fucking ridiculous how this movie sets up its premise.
It's fantastic. It's so good. Ryota is truly someone who does not care about consequences at all. And it's a beautiful thing to witness.
It is so
terrifying.
scary when they wake up in the middle of the ocean and don't even really, there's a certain moment sort of like, where are we sailing? I guess we're going south. They don't even know where we're going. I'm like, if I'm any of these other characters, I would have fucking thrown this child overboard at this point.
Yeah.
Like it's a miracle that they don't kill each other.
Yeah, it is terrifying. I mean, I don't know if it's because I have lived my entire life here in the Midwest, but like if I just woke up on open water, not knowing I was going to be on open water,
yes,
like I would lose my mind. I would no longer be connected to reality. I would be in a corner somewhere. Like it would be terrifying. Also, I am not convinced that the thief was even trying to steal the yacht. He doesn't even know how to sail. Like he was probably hiding on the yacht.
No,
you know
you're
what
right.
I mean?
You're right.
So like, how terrible is that even? Like none of those three people were ever expecting to be on the water at all.
Yeah. And then they have like when they have the montage of like the cans of food slowly
Dude, it's so good.
Yeah, and I'm just like so anxious about it. Like,
oh yeah,
it's a very fun movie. So like you don't really feel it, but I also at the same time felt it.
Oh
like,
yeah,
this is scary.
It's effective.
They're gonna die out here.
It's very effective.
Yeah. Long before any giant claw ever emerges from the ocean towards them.
Honestly, amazed they got as far as they did without like any threat of weather or claw, you know?
Truly.
And Ryota's so matter of fact about everything. He's like, oh yeah, no, I stole it. Oh yeah, guys, we gotta get up there and pull the sail down because like it's about to be real bad. Like,
thanks.
Worry about one thing, Ryota, ever.
It's fine. A psychic told me I'm gonna find my brother. It's fine.
Yeah, you know? I guess if I knew something we're 100% sure in the future, I wouldn't worry about it.
I guess so. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's how they crash land on this fucking island. It's so ridiculous. I love it.
Yeah. Very like there's something about like and this isn't like where he was trying to go even, which is kind of crazy.
Yeah,
or at least like I don't think it's where he was trying to go. I think he was trying to go wherever the boat sunk. I don't know what he was going to do when he got to the location in the middle of the ocean.
I don't think he knew either.
But yeah, I mean, so many stories like just open with. Honestly, you know what's kind of crazy is I just watched a Cabin Fever movie. Have you ever seen any of the Cabin Fever movies? They're disgusting.
I actually didn't know there were more than one. Are they all like flesh-eating viruses?
They're all flesh-eating viruses every time.
How do you do more than one movie of that?
Well, this one was a prequel. But what's wild is it honestly is like very much, The reason I watched it is because Sean Astin is in it, and it's maybe the hottest Sean Astin's ever been. He's like a little bit bigger, like he's on track, but then he also has a full beard, which is rare. Anyway, and he's the one person, this isn't a spoiler, it's a setup. He's the one person who can't have his flesh eaten away, so he's pretty the whole time. But what's wild is that movie starts basically the same way as this one, where they just are sort of like, we're on a boat and we're having fun, and then we land on this island and oops, there's like a government facility that's shady of some kind. Kind of crazy.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Never would have expected that to come up on this podcast.
Yeah. Cabin Fever, stealing from Ebirah, Horror of the Deep.
Probably never gonna watch those movies, but that's fine.
Wouldn't recommend.
Cool. Good. I'm glad I'm not missing out. Yeah. It's so funny too, because they still are like, what do you think of like still kind of trying to tap into like the nuclear weapons of it all? Because I think that's ultimately what this organization is doing.
Yeah.
Is like nuclear testing of some kind.
I think it's interesting that they, and probably the right choice, that they specifically just say that this is like a terrorist organization, right? So they're still kind of like tapping into the atomic bomb of it all, but they've kind of separated it from sort of standard mainstream politics because they've done that story a lot. I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing or a bad thing, but I think it works for this movie that is very separated from the world, essentially. Like nothing that happens in this movie is connected back to the world any of these people come from. For it to just be this sort of like hidden terrorist organization that I guess eventually would sort of exert its power over either Japan or other world powers or what, I think works in its sort of ambiguity and mystery.
Yeah.
In a sort of Bondy way where it's sort of like there just is a bad guy out there who just happens to have a lot of money and power. And like at some point he's going to emerge, you know?
Yeah. I think the bond of it all is that's where it's like the strongest. Like Red Bamboo, it's just like their way to be completely out of universe and just a Bond villain. There you go. You know, so I think it makes a lot of sense. And like, it also means that like, there's no reason they can't just be as despicable as possible without there being any political implications. Yeah. Cause it really is just like, no, they're just an evil terrorist group. So yeah, of course they're going to enslave people from another island and bring them over and shoot them if they try to escape and force them to like crush berries to make juice that keeps Ebirah away for some reason. You know, and also try to create nuclear weapons to take over the world. Like they're just pure evil. And it means, and also I think it helps drive why this group of, again, a ragtag group of misfits would be driven enough to stop this terrorist organization, because they recognize that they are just pure evil and are willing to band together to stop them, because they're the only ones who can.
There's no real like conflict over like what to do in the scenario in a way that like a lot of these movies otherwise would have needed to sort of tackle, you know? Yeah.
Absolutely.
Also, the chemical, not red juice. We've moved away from the red juice. It's yellow juice.
Yellow juice. But that's another thing that it's sort of like, you can sort of see, like, for one, Sekizawa being tired and just recycling things. Like, yeah, there are berries that make juice that does something to a kaiju. And also it used to be a Kong movie. So, of course, those connections we made. So it's very funny. Yeah. I like it.
It's also just lemonade. Those are lemons. We can see them.
It is pretty cool when you see the ship and just all that liquid just like spewing out of it as it goes. It's a really like evocative looking image.
It is, and I'm really glad they introduced it with no explanation. So the first time they see that ship, creepy. It's super creepy. You just see the ship coming into port, spewing this liquid, and like they don't really comment on it, but it's impossible to ignore as an audience member. Like, you know, something's up, even if they're sort of not catching on right away.
Yellow was also like such an interesting color in this movie. Like, none of the kaiju are yellow. I mean, Mothra has some yellow in her, but like none of the kaiju are really yellow. But like the yellow juice, the yellow sweater. I think more than one character wears like a yellow sweater, or yellow shirt. Yeah. And then like that giant fucking office that Red Bamboo has. You would think Red Bamboo would have a red color scheme, but most of their inside stuff, like that office is fucking bright yellow with like with the captain is like flanked by like a couple of like art pieces on the wall. Yeah. Like it's really cool looking, but it's like just yellow everywhere, which is such an interesting choice.
There's a lot of yellow, and I mean the chemical that keeps the lobster at bay is of course going to be yellow for lemons and butter, but the color palette
I didn't even think about that. Oh hell yeah, that's hilarious. I kind of love that.
But the color palette of this movie is really cool. I mean, yellow is a huge piece of it, but I think it's a huge piece of it because the color palette is this sort of like really warm kind of tropical color palette, in that like all the main characters are wearing, I mean, they're a gradient of like brown, red, orange, yellow. And then like you pointed out, the Red Bamboo's base is kind of those colors too as well. And then, you know, Dio and all the people on Infant Island are wearing these really tropical sort of patterns, all of which the coolest color on any of them is like a sky blue. So like, it's a really pleasing color palette. I liked it a lot. I don't know, like, you know, I don't know if there was much intention behind the sort of color direction of this movie, but it all works really well.
I agree. Yeah, I totally agree.
It has its own distinct, I mean, like, it's interesting because it has its own distinct, like, musical vibe. It has its own distinct color aesthetic. Like, there's so many distinct things about this that just weren't what I was expecting, but I like a lot.
I do too. I mean, again, the sort of island beach vibes, I think, work really, really well for this movie, and just make it feel so distinct. Yeah. One of my notes when it was like just Yoshimura with like the trio of guys, one of my notes was just it's like Scrooge McDuck with Huey, Dewey, and Louie.
It really is. And if this were a comedy, you would feel it so much harder. That's such a good point. Especially because they do all have their own sort of like distinct color. They're all wearing their color. It's like, oh yeah, that's really funny.
I mean, you know, this movie doesn't go as hard on comedy as it could have if it wanted to, but like there are still plenty of like funny moments. Like there's a bit, it's a really kind of subtle joke, but like there's a bit when it's, you know, the trio and Yoshimura and Dio are like trying to get away from Red Bamboo, and they like it looks like they're jumping off of a cliff onto the ocean. They even treat it like, oh no, we're gonna jump. Oh god, everyone, we've got to do it. And they look really scared, and they do it, and all of them jump off except for I don't remember who the last person. I think it's Nita. I think is the last one. But then they finally cut to where he's jumping, and he's just like jumping like 3 feet to a lower cliff edge right below.
Yeah.
Like, I think it was like a really clever joke.
Yeah. There are like little moments of humor for sure.
Yeah. And even like the sillier, like when they're like hiding behind like the little bush that they built to walk, like, right out of Looney Tunes is really funny.
That fucking fake bush is so funny. I love it so much. Yeah. Like most of the humor is like not conventional, like joke in that there's like setup and punchline. It's just like funny or silly things that are happening or funny or silly interactions. I mean, even so much as just like, you know, when they need to like rock climb and Nita's complaining is like, but I'm hungry, and someone's like, we're all hungry. like it's just like silly little things like that make me chuckle. That moment where they jump down is also where they discover that like Godzilla's just living on this island, which is like the whole setup for Godzilla. It's interesting because like there's quite a bit of this movie before you sort of realize how Godzilla's going to factor in, which isn't weird. That's like not that abnormal. But the fact that he's just like sleeping there and then they walk away from him sleeping was sort of an extra additional beat of me being like, well, wait, but how is Godzilla going to factor in here?
Right.
Like, is he just going to wake up or what? And I actually think it's really clever, and I think it's a good transition into what I'm assuming will become the era of like Godzilla just straight up being a superhero. Sure. That they kind of walk away at first and then recognize like, oh wait, actually like if we wake him up, like he will solve our problem. So like, let's do it, you know?
Yeah.
It's not an accidental waking up. It's not like it doesn't even really feel like risky. It feels very intentional and very precise. And like, as scary as it is for them to be right near Godzilla, the tone of what's going on is never even though they have the realization later that they were never in danger, I never really felt as an audience member that like our heroes were in danger because of Godzilla, you know?
Right. I agree. Like they were afraid of him understandably, but like I think they also recognized the lesser of two evils here, and the lesser of two evils is like way, way, way less evil than the bigger evils, which I think because Ebirah is like so purely just an animalistic creature that's just killing everything that treads in the ocean, and that the human terrorist organization are like the most cartoonishly evil terrorist organization ever. Like
that helps.
Yeah, too. Of course Godzilla is going to look like a good, like Godzilla doesn't have to be that heroic to look like a good guy in this situation. You know?
He just has to wake up grumpy and get in the way of the worst stuff, you know?
Right. Exactly. I think that's really clever. One of the things I did remember from this movie, like very vividly, was just the moment where they like hear Godzilla's heartbeat. Dude. Because of course his heartbeat would be really loud if you're in a echoing, reverberating cave next to him. I feel like, you know, he's giant. I thought that was really cool. Yeah. And then like the clever way that they like use the sword that they found earlier to be a lightning rod that they tie to the wire that Dio found earlier to shock him. Yeah. And wake him up. And they wait like 3 whole days or whatever for it. Like this is like very much playing the long game, which I thought was really interesting too.
At first when they said 3 whole days, I was like, that seems like such a superfluous detail. But the 3 whole days allows for Ryota and his brother to get back on their raft. Right. So it's actually like really smart that they kind of set up the fact that there are these thunderstorms that happen here, but that like they got to wait for the next one. So I don't know. I like that. It's like not really that important. They don't have to pay attention to those timeline things as much as they do in that moment, but I like that they did. Yeah. I don't know what they were eating, but you can go a long time without food as long as you can drink water, I guess.
I guess so. Yeah. Yeah.
I also really liked how hidden Godzilla was. I thought they did a good job. Like they probably could have shown him even more without it being obvious. Not that they needed to. I'm glad they didn't because it's a cool realization. But like being able to see his claw first and then sort of panning up and seeing just like his spine sort of poking out and then showing his head. Like, they kind of are convincing in the fact that they wouldn't notice right away. I mean, they were in that cave for a while before they noticed that Godzilla was kind of like right next to them.
Yeah.
Is because they set it up well, like artistically. They set up that scene really well.
I agree. Once he wakes up, then of course he immediately starts fighting Ebirah and does his classic move of playing volleyball with the rock. Which is fun. I mean, he even literally like headbutts it with his head like he's playing soccer. It's very funny.
I think I've said this already, but I just truly had no idea this was like such a staple of Godzilla movies and like such a essential tool in Godzilla's toolbox of fighting moves.
He loves to throw them rocks.
Loves to throw a rock. Yeah.
I mean, I think this movie, I'm always okay with him doing the rock thing as long as there also is something else happening at some point.
Yeah.
Like, I think in a lot of ways, it's just sort of like an easy way to have an easy introductory fight sequence to the monster without you pulling out all your cool shit. And I think that like it works for me in this movie because there's like just the volleyball sequence where they just play catch with a rock.
Look, it's a beach movie. If there's no volleyball, what are we doing?
Exactly. But there's also so much cool underwater stuff that they do with them. I mean, like I will take, a million Godzilla throwing a rock back and forth if we also get him bashing Ebirah's head in with a rock underwater.
Yeah.
Like that was fucking sick. So like, I'll take that. That's fine.
The underwater stuff was super cool. He throws Ebirah over his head basically at one point.
He really does. Yeah.
And that's really cool. I mean, I don't know
Very
that it
cool.
always looks especially, it's always a cool thing to do. I don't know that it always looks as cool as it could. Like when King Kong swings Godzilla around, that is fucking cool. I don't know that it looks as cool as it could in your mind, right? But this almost looks as cool on screen as it would in your mind, him throwing Ebirah around. Yeah. They pull that off really well. Or maybe I'm just remembering it cooler, but I feel like it looked really cool.
Well. I think they pull it off well. I even feel like there's certain points when like I think they do cool stuff with all the water stuff in general. Cause there's even points when it's like really, when it is really stormy out. Like I think it's right before Godzilla wakes up when the storm comes that does wake him up.
Yeah.
And you see the stormy dark water that Ebirah is in. And I'm like, I'm getting like Heisei vibes from this, the way that like night water stuff was done on like Biollante, right? Like, I don't know. I think this movie, I think they utilize the ocean setting really well.
They do. They really do, because they utilize it really well when they first shipwreck. I think that's all really effective. This Ebirah moment where you're talking about right before Godzilla wakes up is also when Ryota and his brother are in the water on the raft. Like they haven't reached the island yet. Yeah. And so that's really intense. There's also that moment earlier when we've seen Ebirah, but Godzilla's still very much asleep, where like the two islanders try to escape on their boat and Ebirah like skewers them.
Oh
like
my God,
that's terrifying.
Violent. It's really
like
violent.
They do some really wild stuff in the water, despite it all being not despite. I mean, like largely because, but the effort that goes into doing all that practically with water is way more impressive because like it's fucking water. Like I don't know how else to say it, but like you have to make those waves work for you in such a very specific way.
Yeah, even if you're using the Toho pool that they have, they still have to find a way to control that water,
Right.
So
right. It's not like you push a button and get the wave you want. Like you have to make that happen.
Exactly. Yeah. It's very cool. After his first fight sequence with Ebirah, then it's the sequence where fucking Godzilla just like wants to nap like really, really badly. Like so much.
I love
so much of the tension and conflict in this movie is like predicated on people just trying to go to sleep.
Yeah.
Because he's trying to nap. I've seen people read it as he's trying to like meditate or something.
It looks like that.
It does. I think he's just an old man who just wants to go to sleep. I really think that's what it is. They woke him up too early and he just wants to go to sleep, and he keeps fucking waking up, and there's a lady in front of him that keeps moving, and then he senses her moving, and then he looks at her and then she looks like she's dead. And he's like, what the fuck's going on with people? Can people just leave me alone?
I think that's like a totally fair way to read it, and it's just as likely as any other. I also think there's something cool to the idea that like not necessarily that he's meditating, but that he's just like waiting. Like Ebirah will come back and he's waiting. And he's not going to expend energy. He's just going to be there when Ebirah comes back.
I kind of like that too. Yeah.
So I don't know. Yeah. And I do like, I don't know that this is what I would have expected, but like the way that Godzilla sits in that moment to either sleep or just wait is like on his tail with his hands on his knees, which is why I think people interpret it as meditating. But like,
true.
I guess how else would he sit? You know, like it's not what I was expecting, but like, where are you putting your tail, buddy?
I fucking love it.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the kind of like anthropomorphic stuff that I like kind of fucking love from him, where it's just like, yeah, how would Godzilla
like,
just like,
have we seen him sit down to this point in the movies? This might be the first time Godzilla's just like popped a squat, you know?
That's actually a really good question. I'm not sure if we have.
What would he sit on?
Right. That's so funny. Yeah, I fucking love it. It's just like very much like dad in a recliner vibes.
It is
what I feel like. Just
right.
Just
which is why it feels very sleepy for sure.
Right. Dozing off like 5 minutes into a movie when you're on the recliner, like that kind of vibe, you know?
Yep. Oh man, I'm turning into that person and it's rough. It's rough. I'm
me
like,
too.
How many times do I have to start this movie before I can actually watch it, you know? Not this one, but just any movie.
Yep.
Okay, so Godzilla, since we've seen a few times now Godzilla do these very anthropomorphized things to the point where we even see him do like a dance that's a reference to like a manga or an anime or something. He does a specific motion where he like rubs the side of his nose with a finger. Is that a reference to anything specific that you could find? I
think he literally was just like scratching his face.
Okay.
That's how I read it. That's how I could be wrong. I didn't see anything that was saying otherwise.
It just felt really specific, so I didn't know if that was like a cultural reference or a specific media property reference or a character or something I didn't know.
Yeah, I don't think so. That would be really interesting. Yeah, I mean that's also what gave me the like dad taking a nap kind of vibe.
Sort of like scratching and yawning.
Like yeah, right.
Yeah,
and the dude can't fucking sleep because he gets interrupted by the giant condor.
None of these monsters can sleep.
He gets interrupted by jets. So funny. And the fucking
jets! I forgot about the jets.
Yeah, and the jets, surfer
dude
music.
So I was just gonna say the jets sequence is so funny because that surfer music goes so hard in that sequence for some reason.
So
I mean,
weird.
I guess the reason is that is the score, right? It is a surf rock score. So like when it gets intense, it's not going to stop being surf rock, but it's really funny when it's like jets and he's like chomping jets. And I love that he catches the jets just out of the air.
So good.
That's cool as hell.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting too. And to the, anthropomorphic superhero Godzilla thing, like it's after that point, then he does just go after Red Bamboo. And he's kind of like, it is interesting that there is such a distinction between Godzilla kind of just, walking through a city and the city is just in his path. And that's what causes the destruction.
Yeah.
In this case, he is specifically going to this terrorist organization's base and stomping on it with intention and destroying it with intention. And it is so clearly different than what we ever see him with property destruction in any other movie before this,
It is. But again, this movie, for some reason, I don't think it's been hard to pick up on the fact, if I haven't even just explicitly said, like, I've had a hard time imagining Godzilla like described as a superhero, but I know that is true, like that he is a hero, or that it, like that's coming, and I know it's coming, and I've been knowing it's coming since the beginning of this. But I actually think this movie might be the first one so far that it's been like abundantly clear how that happens. I don't think this is even the one yet, but I think it is like kind of this perfect ushering in. If the next movie doesn't do it, I'm still going to like think back to the Ebirah movie to be like, oh, that's kind of where you usher in this idea that like Godzilla could just be a superhero. Because even in this movie, it's very different that he's just intentionally stomping things. But in this particular story, it makes sense because it's all happening on the island where he's just trying to fucking sleep, So like, it's not even like he has to recognize that these are bad guys to be doing what he's doing. They are in the wrong, I don't even want to say in the wrong spot because he is doing it on purpose. But like they have chosen the wrong island, and he is like, this is my island. Get off of here. You are in my way. I don't want you here. I'm trying to sleep here. Take your monster and go,
Yeah.
But none of it feels like a massive tonal shift from the last Godzilla movie we would have watched.
Yeah. Yeah.
Or tonal shift isn't the right thing. It doesn't feel like a massive behavioral shift.
Sure.
The tone of the movie is very different, but like
it does. I think if you're trying to track Godzilla's arc from like, the original recipe Godzilla, an antagonist, to like heroic character. Honestly, like movie to movie, it's made the progression has made a lot of sense. Like movie to movie, like going from Mothra vs. Godzilla to Ghidorah to Astro Monster to this, there's a very clear progression of him getting like incrementally more and more heroic and incrementally more and more willing to like fight a bad guy, more and more in a way that makes a lot of sense.
And this is one I think that is perfect for me because I wasn't super into like the monster sort of like discussing their approach to like stopping the bad guy thing. Like it's fun and I appreciate it for what it is, but it was like, I don't think it was written for me specifically to be like, here's a movie for Doug, but this like gets in that same direction without necessarily laying it on as thick, and I think is also still really effective in like pushing the needle in that direction.
Yeah, for sure. Like the whole end sequence in the movie, I think is really well done. We already talked about it, but they do a nice job of like splitting up the human characters into like kind of segmented groups that all kind of do something very distinct that lead up to the climax while at the same time there's also the bigger monster fights and stuff happening with Godzilla. I think it's really cool, but I think they use everyone really well because they have Yoshimura. I like how often he uses that fucking skeleton key. It's so cool.
Yeah.
He really is like a rogue in D&D. Like that's like, I've got my lock picking skills.
I love that we get to see him make it. That's such a small little detail that makes such a huge difference. He doesn't just pull it out of his pocket. We got to see him make it. And I think that's nice.
Yeah. So I love that. So like he gets to be sort of the infiltrator. You have like Nita, who's also like basically destroying Red Bamboo from the inside by like tampering with the yellow liquid by like throwing that out and replacing it with like fake yellow liquid from leaves.
Use the leaves instead. Yeah, he basically makes tea instead of lemonade and it's not as strong. But like, I love that. Again, I think that's why he's my favorite, is because that's who he ends up being. And it's truly not what I would have expected because he's posed as he's presented to us as like the athlete. You would expect him to be your fighter. And he's not really your fighter. He's like your revolutionary. It's cool.
That's so true. He's the one who comes up with, honestly, the cleverest plan out of everyone, really.
Yeah.
That is like what finally gets the actual leaders like killed, because like Ebirah ends up killing them because they're not repelling him anymore when they try to sail away. So,
and that is his plan. I mean, that is like solely his plan.
100% his plan. Yeah. And the two brothers were able to like connect the dots between the two islands essentially, so that Mothra can eventually come rescue them at the end of the movie. There's also of course this is a fucking like Bond riff, the island is going to self-destruct in however a set amount of time, of course.
It must. And Godzilla no longer has a home. God damn it.
Yeah.
What do you think about their little Mothra hot air balloon basket situation?
I think it's cute. I think it's fun.
I like the miniature too. That's another miniature that I thought worked really, really well. I mean, part of it is just like the angle at which they shoot it. They're really smart about how they put it onto camera, but I like it a lot. I thought it worked really well. Yeah,
I do think, Mothra's use in this movie is just so interesting because she really, truly is sleeping until the very end, when she is sort of like the Deus Ex Mothra to get them off of the island at the very end and carry them away in a little basket. And it's cute. I think it's really fun. I think there's something really cool to have Mothra carrying a basket full of people back to her island. I think it's really cool. My question is like, once they're back to Infant Island, like how are the people who don't live on Infant Island, what are they going to do? How are they going to go home? I don't know.
Mothra will take them in a basket somewhere else, You
know what? She could do that. There's a reason not to.
Yeah, she doesn't just do that though. She also wakes up and is like, Godzilla, it's not just you. Okay, we're all bothered right now. Can you chill? Like, I got woken up too.
That's true.
We're all trying to get back to our beds, buddy. Relax.
Yeah. It does make me think about a thing that we have talked about now quite frequently, of how these movies are less Godzilla movies and more sort of this kaiju ensemble movie.
Yeah.
Because, obviously Godzilla really shows up very late in the movie, but also so does Mothra. And it really is more like the story of these people on this island, and the kaiju are kind of like the background characters that are also just part of the ensemble in a lot of ways,
Yes. And actually it's an interesting thing to think about, because not that this isn't like a question I think we've ever really asked before, so I don't even know why I thought of it right now, but like I think for that reason this might be, as much as I like it, probably like a bad Godzilla movie to show somebody like really early in their journey.
I agree.
Do you know what I mean? Because I feel like if you didn't already have sort of some of the priming for either the ensemble cast or like what the timing of some of these earlier Godzilla movies are like, I feel like you'd be impatient with this movie, because it's sort of like, this is a Godzilla movie. Where the fuck is Godzilla, you know? Because this one is even later, I think, than some Godzilla movies are. Like all the monsters, with the exception of Ebirah, who is, you know, makes appearances but isn't like rampaging the whole time, show up very, very late.
Yeah, in a lot of, I mean, honestly, this is, you know, certainly I wouldn't say this for a lot of the Godzilla movies, but like the human stuff and the adventure they have on the island is truly the best part of it. And the kind of the kaiju stuff is kind of like the least interesting part of the movie, which isn't to say I didn't like it. I liked it a lot. It was great, but everything else is way more interesting than the kaiju themselves in this movie.
You know what it is? I'm so excited for when you watch Dogora, because that movie is very much like a totally different kind of movie that just happens to be told in a world where kaiju exist. And this movie's kind of like that too. Like it is a human story that could totally happen without the kaiju involved. I mean, obviously you couldn't just take them out and the movie would still exist, but like you could still tell the story of a guy trying to find his missing brother, and like this ragtag group that stumbles across this terrorist organization has to take them down, in the same way that a Bond movie might sort of work out without these big rampaging monsters. So like this movie's kind of like that too. So I don't think it's like that weird that the kaiju stuff is just by circumstance the like least interesting stuff. Not that it's not interesting, but like, the human stuff is the story. The story is of them finding a brother and stumbling across this terrorist organization and stopping them.
Right. Yeah.
And they have to navigate the world in which kaiju are causing obstacles.
Sure. I mean, yeah, right. Like I'm happy that the kaiju are here, because they add interesting angles and conflicts within the movie.
And they become tools to solving the human problem.
Exactly. Yeah. Which I think is really cool. And I think that another way that they handle Godzilla well, I think, is by the end, it's sort of like there is like this sort of conflict where the people are sort of like, oh no, Godzilla's scary, we got to get out of here. But also he did help us escape, and he wasn't trying to kill us. Like, I feel bad for blowing him up, and they're trying to like yell at him to jump off of the island and stuff so he doesn't die, which I think is really, really sweet.
Yeah. It's so many of those little things that start pushing it in the direction that I'm finally beginning to understand it gets to, you know? Because we've seen plenty of people conflicted about how they treat Godzilla, but there's no conflict in this one. Every person in that basket is like, Godzilla, move. Like, Godzilla, you will die. Go, you know? Yeah.
It's so nice.
It's cool. I like it. And I love his little jump into the water. I was terrified for the real human being inside there, but I loved it. I loved it a lot. It
does look really, it looks really cool. Ooh. It's really adorable. Yeah. No, I like that.
Yeah.
It's like, no, it's good. I think moving the needle in the direction of Godzilla being heroic, I think this movie actually kind of quietly does a lot of work for that.
It did for me.
Heroic and sympathetic to the people in universe too.
Yeah.
Which again, I wasn't really expecting to be tracking that so much, but like when you're paying attention to it, it really does work really well narratively.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
Anything else about this movie?
No, I don't think so. It's just, I don't know. I was really surprised. I'm not surprised I liked it. I was really hoping I would like a movie called Ebirah Horror of the Deep, knowing that there would be some kind of sea creature in it. But I am surprised I like this movie as much as I do, because it's so different than what I expected.
Absolutely.
But it's got such a clear identity to it in a way that I wouldn't have expected, given the circumstances it was created under. And I don't know, like, of the movies that are ending up on my sort of like easily rewatchable shelf, this is, I think, one of them, kind of oddly enough.
Yeah, I think so. I agree. I really enjoyed it. I'm so glad I got to revisit it, and I don't know why it didn't stick with me when I first watched it. But it did this time. I really enjoyed it. I had a blast with this one.
It's fun.
predictions, Doug.
Mm-hmm.
You've already kind of talked about it. So I think you're kind of landing on, you don't think we're going to see Ebirah ever again, or?
I don't think we're going to see Ebirah ever again. And I think the only circumstances under which we might are in like very modern movies that treat the world like monsters exist everywhere.
Okay.
And even then I feel like it would be more of like an Easter egg than it would be like, this is a movie featuring Ebirah, or Ebirah is part of a monster cast of villains, you know?
Gotcha.
So I think more so, no, I don't think we'll see Ebirah than we will. Be really funny if Ebirah is in like the next movie. That'd be hilarious.
Yeah. The next movie is Godzilla versus Ebirah Part 2.
God, that'd be well. Actually, it would be really funny because like we had Ghidorah the three-headed monster, and then there was another movie just called Godzilla versus King Ghidorah. So like, it wouldn't even be that weird if it was like Ebirah Horror of the Deep, and then the next movie was just Godzilla versus Ebirah.
Yeah, that's true. Do you think we're going to see the giant condor ever again?
You know, I'm going to say no, but I have to put in there that, like, I know the condor exists because of budgetary reasons, and that's probably the kind of thing I should be considering for stuff like Ebirah, because that suit exists. They didn't destroy the suit. So,
yeah.
Theoretically, if I'm being smart and cautious, I should say that we see all of these again, but no, I don't think we'll see the giant condor again either.
Yeah.
That thing blew up with the island.
Yeah. That's all I had for Showa era stuff.
Okay.
The next movie that we are
don't
doing,
think we're seeing these characters again. I feel like that's a question you usually ask.
I usually ask, but the answer is like no for the Showa era every time. So you know, it has been. But yeah, I can keep asking it if you want me to. And then
no, that's all right.
You know,
if it's never yes for Showa, then that's fine.
Well, the next movie we're doing is in the Heisei era because it is 1992's Godzilla versus Mothra. So this comes right after Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
Okay.
If you want to set yourself in a time and place.
Got it. Yes. Oh, interesting.
Right. The year after Godzilla versus King Ghidorah is Godzilla versus Mothra. So how do you think Mothra is going to be presented in 1992? Like, do you have any ideas of what might be sort of different putting her in the 90s? What might be the same as seeing her from the Showa era?
This is the first time we see Mothra in this
era. In the
era.
Heisei era. Yes.
So wait, okay. What was your actual question?
I mean, how do you think she's going to be presented, and what like differences, sames? What do you think? How do you think it's going to be?
I feel like for her first appearance, I feel like it's probably going to be pretty predictable. I feel like she probably appears very similarly to how she would appear in the Showa era. She's probably from an island. She's probably hatched in some way. She's probably good. She probably is either a sort of like incidentally destructive force or not even that. I wouldn't even be surprised if she were just truly an ally or calming force. So I don't think it's going to be that different than what we're used to. I'm not expecting a big change for Mothra in this era to what I've seen so far.
Yeah. Okay. One specific question then. I'm just curious. Easy yes or no. Shobijin in the movie, yes or no?
Yes. Okay. I feel like I have zero data points to ever support them not being around when Mothra is around.
Sure.
So me saying no would just be me throwing a dart into the dark.
Sure. That makes sense. Now, do you think any other kaiju other than Mothra are going to appear? Other than Mothra and Godzilla are going to appear in the movie?
Okay, wait. This is interesting because it's called Godzilla versus Mothra.
Right.
That's weird. And this is after Godzilla versus King Ghidorah.
Yup.
Fascinating. Okay. Based on what I just said, I feel like the answer should be yes, there will be other kaiju. Yeah, but I feel like the Heisei movies are a little bit more straightforward sometimes. There's another kind. I don't know what it would be though. It would have to be something we've seen. No, there's not. It's Godzilla and Mothra, and Mothra is somehow brought into the scene because Godzilla is, being Godzilla.
Yeah. Do you think they're still gonna be kind of like a villainous character? Is gonna be more of a heroic character?
I think it's a villain. I think based on what I'm trying to parse out in my brain right now, given its place in time, I think he's still sort of villainous, or at least a force of destruction. And the title, I think the naming convention is more outside the narrative than it is reflective of the narrative. So
sure.
I think he's still the thing to be stopped. I think Mothra is probably a thing that helps stop him.
Nice. Cool. That's all I got.
All right.
Excited for that one. Yeah. Any other spare thoughts before we just totally close out?
No, I don't think so. It'll be really funny if Mothra is just like actually a robot from the future or something.
That would be really funny, actually. I mean, they've been sci-fi movies so far, so
right?
Maybe. Mecha Mothra.
Yeah,
that's pretty sick. If you would like to find other queer creators to talk about media like this, you can check out the Glitterjaw Queer Podcast Collective at glitterjaw.com. Follow on Twitter, Facebook, and Blue Sky at Glitterjaw, and Instagram at GlitterjawPods. One of the things that are going to be happening on Glitterjaw very soon, very relevant to the James Bond references in this movie, is a podcast called The Q Division, which is a James Bond podcast that is very similar in format to ours, where Gavin and Chelsea are going through the James Bond films. Gavin is a big James Bond film, and I know Chelsea is not familiar with them. So just like the dynamic Doug and I have for this. So if you like our podcast and are interested in another like franchise that's very similar, that also spans many, many decades, some of the very same decades as Godzilla movies, you should definitely check out the Q Division. The trailer is out now, so you can find that on glitterjaw.com. You can find it on anywhere you get your podcast apps to go ahead and subscribe to the feed, and new episodes are going to be coming out in November. So a month from now is when the episodes are going to start. And very, very excited for that podcast. And I'm sure there's going to be some kind of crossover conversations between that and this, just because of how similar and kind of intertwined these two franchises were.
100%.
Yeah. But Doug, if people want to find you and everything you're doing, where's the best place to do that? Yeah,
you can find me all over the place at Ikybooley, ICKYBOOLEY. You can hear me weekly on a podcast with Derek called Walloping Web Snappers, where coincidentally we will be talking very soon about a Spider-Man episode also inspired by James Bond. So everything's just kind of
weird,
pointing to the debut of the Q Division.
Completely accidental.
Totally.
Like none of this.
None
of this was intentional.
Accidental synergy.
Love that.
But yeah, you can listen to me weekly over there. You can also listen to me on a podcast called Novel Gaming, where my friend Katie and I catch up on all the books, video games, and sometimes other media we've been consuming lately. What about you, Derek?
Sure, you can find me most places at Derek B. Gale. In addition to what Doug mentioned, I have a couple of other podcasts as well. I have Gimmicks, which I do with my co-host David, where we are looking at the high concept and experimental and structure-breaking gimmicky episodes of TV. I also have Lee Carvalho's Potting Challenge, which I do with my friend Tommy, where we are looking at all of the Simpsons tie-in video games chronologically, as well as pop culture history and video game history and Simpsons history. And I'll go ahead and plug this too. I haven't plugged it in a while, but this month I have another Tokusatsu Thursday stream coming up on October 24th. It is going to be a special Halloween stream. It's going to be a big 3-hour one. I stream that with my partner Chris over on Sci-Fi Explosion. That's twitch.tv/Sci-Fi Explosion. And if you don't know what Tokusatsu Thursday is, it's just we stream a bunch of episodes and sometimes movies and clips, sometimes music videos, and lots of Japanese commercials of various Tokusatsu things. And of course, Halloween, it's going to be all spooky themed. Got a lot of spooky, scary Japanese commercials interspersed, and like monster and or spooky Halloween themed Toku episodes that are packed in there. So definitely check that out. Twitch.tv/Sci-Fi Explosion on October 24th at, I believe, 7:30 Eastern time. But follow me on social media if you want to try find that out when that's happening exactly. Join our Patreon at patreon.com/wallopingwebsnappers. That's, of course, the name of our Spider-Man podcast, but that supports everything Doug and I do together. And we do have bonus Godzilla content that happens periodically. We have released an episode on the Hanna-Barbera Godzilla cartoon already. So if you want to hear our thoughts and some fun little deep dives on that show, you can find that on Patreon for as little as $1 a month. Also, check out our Discord, where you can find, where you can talk to any other listeners and talk to us about this show. There's a link to that in the show notes. You can email us at skrionkpodcast@gmail.com. Please rate, review, and subscribe on all your podcast platforms. And next month, of course, we're going to see the 90s take on the Queen of the Monsters. It's going to be like fucking extreme, edgy 90s Mothra. In the movie, Godzilla versus Mothra from 1992.
Woo! See you then.